everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Enlightenment YouTube channel. I'm your host, Josh the Archon, and tonight we're going to delve into the atheist community and my outlook on it, the pros and the cons, because I'm part of that community. I've been part of that community for close to 8 years or 9 years at this very moment. So I think this is something that really needs to be talked about. I think that we need to look at what's really going on within the atheist community, and let's look at what's really good about it. Let's look at a couple of things that we need to fix, and then we can literally hopefully in the future make a better community for all individuals who are within it now and who will be within it in future generations to come. But before I do that, I really want to thank everybody who's on the in the comment section for being here. I want to thank Linear for coming on in. I want to thank Annoyed for coming on in, and anybody else who's actually watching at this very moment who hasn't necessarily interacted with the comment section as of yet. I want to thank you for watching the channel. It really does. I'm very thankful for that. So another thing I want to do before we jump on in is that I want to thank producer Wes very much for actually having that intro scene that came up. Seriously, he is fantastic, and I just wanted to do a shout out to Wes and his help to me. So thank you so much, Wes. If you're in the chats, thank you. If not, well then, still calling you out and saying thank you, my friend. The next thing that I want to do before we get started is I want to thank our Patreon supporters. I want to thank Linear for being a Patreon supporter. I want to thank Tang for being a Patreon supporter. I want to thank Mikey Famine, and I also want to thank at the bottom of my heart Laura Magee. So thank you all for actually supporting the channel, for helping me do what I'm doing right now. You guys are fantastic, and I hope that in the future we can really start promoting this new atheist enlightenment that is happening right now. Okay, so let's jump in. So there's a lot of benefits that I find within the atheist community. The first thing is that we're really coming together. Like, I think that our internet community is tight. We're extremely tight when it comes to the internet community, our atheist internet community. And we're actually there for our fellow atheists if they have any sort of issues, problems, or if they just wish to want to talk. I think that we're really good at doing that. We're really good at kind of being together in a sense within an internet environment. So that I think the internet, the atheist community is extremely good at. The other thing that I find that the atheist community is actually good at as well is the sense of helping out other atheists that want to be content producers. There's so many that I've seen out there that have helped other up and coming atheist content producers with helping them out with intros, helping them out with getting guests, all the rest of these things that actually really help up and coming atheists who want to create content for viewers such as yourself, to help them do that, to help what they really want to achieve to get done. So again, I think that the atheist community is beautiful when it comes to actually helping those who are in higher echelon, let's just say YouTube channels, helping out those who are at the bottom rung in order to rise either their subscriptions or their or just helping them out, as I stated, with intros and with credits and everything like that. Just like the shout out that I did with producer Wes. Producer Wes is helping me out as somebody who's new to the game by creating an intro and also helping out with credits and so on and so forth. So with that, as I stated, I it's a great community when it comes to that. Um, the other thing that I want to state that is amazing about the atheist community is that when we do get together, and I know that it's not all the time that we do, but when we do get together as a community, we tend to really we want to try to help out our fellow community in any which way we possibly can. If it's either through donations or just like Freedom from Religion, a beautiful organization that actually helps out individuals coping with their leaving their said religion and coming towards atheism, or moving towards atheism, I should say. So that community in itself is really good because it's there for individuals who aren't who feel that they're alone within their thought process being an atheist, or they question themselves a lot about, well, am I the one, because everybody else around me is religious and I'm not sure if I'm that person that is thinking differently because I really see contradictions within the works I'm reading, or am I the one that's kind of leading myself astray? And Freedom from Religion actually really helps those individuals out. So I got to say, again, another huge benefit to the atheist community, online community, and website community, and so on and so forth. So just with that, I think that we're really, and likewise on the Atheist Enlightenment show, we really want to try to help out individuals the best that we can, or the best that I can in the beginning. But hopefully we start growing the actual Atheist Enlightenment towards where we can actually start helping out other individuals who also feel the same way. Like, oh, am I the only one? And we can be there to help them out and show that there are other individuals just like them. Now another good perspective I find with the atheist community is that we're very, I think that we see things through a logical lens in a sense. Now, this is where I start getting a little bit controversial. So, again, please forgive me. But I do think that atheists look at things more logically when it comes to problems, issues, and how to solve certain issues, uh, rather than certain, I'm not going to say every theist, but certain theists and everything like that. I think that we're more, um, we look at things in a way to actually wonder, how do we actually, or how can we actually solve these issues, and how do we solve these problems, and we end up coming up with concepts that we can then hopefully put into practice and everything. And in the end, we have a lot of good things, like a lot of beneficial things that we actually do within our community. As I stated, helping out each other. We have individuals that have uh, religious trauma syndrome, where they have been traumatized by their religious experience, and we can actually help them out to the best of our capabilities. And obviously, to make that more aware within the psychological community as well, so that we can actually start having psychologists that are trained within that area, where we can look at the religious trauma that a person is going to and going through, and realize how to actually help them within their journey towards dealing and coping with that religious trauma that they have. And that's something that we already have, but I do want to have the Atheist Enlightenment also help out in that general case as well, so that we can help more people through different organizations, that we can focus on psychological perspectives of religious trauma and really try to help out individuals to our best capabilities, at least. Um, and bring awareness that religious trauma is really and is truly a actual syndrome that individuals have. And we need to look into that, and we need to actually bring that to the forefront so that we can make it more uh, uh, we can have more knowledge on it. And as I stated beforehand, with psychologists actually being trained to handle religious trauma syndrome. Um, what but besides that, because as I stated, there's a lot of good that comes from the atheist community, but at the same time, I find that there's a bit of a negative aspect towards our community as well. For instance, I find that our community is too fragmented in a sense where we're looking at, I see it like an ocean, but amongst that ocean, there are like little islands, like pocket atheist groups around. But we don't necessarily come together in order to solve issues, solve problems, or anything towards that extent. We kind of just stay on those islands, and we try to protect those islands to the best of our capabilities through whatever atheistic thought process or ideological tendencies that we may have, which is good in a small way because it kind of shows that atheism isn't dogmatic, which is beautiful. And secular humanism and all the different other prospects of atheist ideology, which is out there, is atomism. I almost messed that up and said animism, but atomism, and so on and so forth. However, the problem is that if we're not connecting with each other, then what we slowly start seeing is that these groups start to slowly drift apart. And when we do try to bridge the gap between those two groups, we see a lot of in-group fighting within there. Now, every group has their quarrels and quabbles and everything like that, which is perfectly fine. But I think the issue is that we are seeing our community sometimes quabble over things that we shouldn't be necessarily attacking each other over. And I feel that this is just driving a wedge within the atheist community and causing individuals to feel lost again within the community that they thought that they have found, right? And now all of a sudden, because of a certain thought process that a person has, all of us they're sort of like ostracized from the group that they have, either because they're conservative in thought process, or too liberal, or too leftist, or too whatever the situation is. And if that is the case, then what we're doing is we're trying to purify atheism and or just secular movements in general, which in towards a certain extent is going to lead to more people actually leaving secular movements in the first place, because they're going to be like, well, I felt that I had more community within the religious community than I did within the atheist community. And if that's going to be the case, then they're going to reach out for other said communities in order to feel more attached to some sort of fundamental, right? Now, jumping to fundamental, I think, too, one of the big problems with the atheist community as well is that we don't necessarily have a fundamental base for us to stand on, right? Like, there's all these different thought processes, which is beautiful, but at the same time, the base isn't there. And if the base is not there, then people again start to feel lost. There's nothing that really ties anybody together. And in that case, you don't really feel like you're a part of a said community anymore. And if that is the case, then again, you start drawing wedges between people within the community, the way that they think, and so on and so forth, which causes a lot of problems with people wanting to actually join into the community willfully. Right? Because when they're seeing that there's so much infighting within a community and people are actually starting to leave the community saying, I thought that this was going to be completely different from the religious community that I was from, but all I'm seeing is that where it's just literally the same thing with almost the same quarrels, except for without a deity in those quarrels, or however a deity may act. Or so from that point, I feel that we are uh, kind of leading the movement astray. We're slowly but surely creating fissures within the movement that people will say, you know what, instead of me staying a part of this, I'm going to actually leave. And if that is the case, we failed, or I believe we failed within our duty in order to promote reason and to promote science and to promote a more progressive society. Because if people are leaving, then other individuals, and definitely religious people who are not necessarily leaving their religions en masse or whatever. And sometimes what we do see is people who are atheists go back to religions and stuff like that because they feel that they have more of a kinship to those that are within religious communities, which I do find is, and well, not a negative aspect, but I do find that that is um that's not good for our community in the first place. And that doesn't mean that we need to force people to stay within our community, no, but we should have at least a solid ground where when people actually join, they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't like whatever the existentialist community, but I'm still going to be within the secular community nonetheless. If we are having people leave the secular community in general and jumping onto a completely different ideological bend or ideological thought process than what they once had beforehand, we are leading future generation of atheists towards a more religious direction. And what we really need to figure out is that how do we make our secular groups more appeasing to individuals and more appeasing to those who are on the fence with religion or who may be deist in mind frame, but they're thinking, well, that has a foundation that if I stand on, it's not made out of sand. It actually is made out of whatever, concrete or whatever the situation may be, is something that has a proper foundation. And that's what we need within our community, I think, is a proper foundation. Now, there will be people who will look at what I'm saying and say I'm completely wrong based on my assessment, because if you create a foundation, that means you're dogmatizing the secular movement. But I think it's completely different. It's not dogmatizing the secular movement. It's actually giving the secular movement grounds to stand on. And then from when they leave to join any other type of secular community, which is around the foundation, they can feel that they are safe and secure on that foundation, not on, as I keep saying, sand. Because if they're on sand, slowly but surely people are going to be like, well, what's the point of me coming out and speaking my mind if there's not going to be any changes that come? Right? Because that's one of the reasons why, and I've always wondered this. People are like, well, my tendency is not to have, let's just say, not to change people's mind. I just want to talk or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. And nobody is saying that you can't talk. Of course you can talk. Talk to your heart's content. But there's a reason why you're talking, is because you're frustrated within the environment that you're living in, and you want your environment to change, and henceforth you are talking on a forum such as YouTube or whatever the situation is, in order for you to get your voice out there so that other people who might think the same way will start thinking, he might be onto something. This, or he or she, I should say, or they might be onto something. And if that is the case, then more people are going to start looking and wanting to change the way society is in the direction that you're actually stating would be beneficial for society to go through. The more progressive way, the more that we can progress within our mechanization, within the ways that we do business and so on and so forth, the better our societies can be. And that's the thing. is that I think out of all the societal, or not societal, my apologies, out of all the ideologies that I've seen so far, secularism seems to be the ideology that has the least amount of violence connected to it. If we look at other secular nations, Western Europe, Northern Europe, and Scandinavia, Australia, and Papua New Guinea, and New Zealand, and everything, and if you move over to Canada and maybe the US, you will actually see that there's really not that much tendency for violence. Well, okay, maybe within the US I got to think about, but within Canada and the Western Europe and Northern Europe, we see a more life expectancies are rising within these nations. Well-being is rising within these nations. And this is the way that we should be looking for, a way where there's more progress for the future to come, right? And if there is no progress for the future to come, then why are we even talking? Because it's true. The theist actually has a point when they say, well, if you're an atheist, why not just keep it on the inside and just continue doing what you're doing, right? Because if you're just talking in the sense of talking and not talking in the sense of wanting to change things or wanting to change society so that society is better for the next generation, or even for your own society in general in your day, or in today, I should say, then why are we even talking? We should just be silent and just let the theists continue to talk and do their thing while we're just silent as on the coattails of the theist. But the thing is that we do not want to be on the coattails of the theists. And that's the whole entire reason of why we are coming and we're talking about our shows and what we want for the future and so on and so forth, because we see that this is the better way. And our way is the way where we progress for all peoples. And that's why I talk, because that's what I truly believe in. And literally, now we jump into the next point, is the tendency of believing in what you stand for. For so many atheists that I hear, they're like, this is not a hill that I'm willing to die on. I'm an agnostic atheist. So whatever information comes my way, I'll change my mind and everything like that, which is beautiful, because it's actually the more professional route of looking at information coming in and then you divulging it and then seeing is it real or is it not. The problem that I have is that lessens the amount of morale that you have within the belief system that you're in. So when people listen to what you're saying, or listen into what you're saying, they constantly hear, well, whatever information comes in and I feel that God is real, well, then I'm going to jump on to that. And they're kind of like, well, if that's the case, then it's only a matter of time before you're going to just jump into the realm of God within their minds, right? And they're just going to be like, well, then what's the point of listening in if this is what your thought process is? Where you're just going to say, well, God, like, because it's true. You don't have any control over what convinces you, right? If there is a God or if there isn't a God. But the reality of the situation is that we need to be more concrete about our beliefs. So if this is the direction of which we are going, then we need to be more assured of ourselves that, okay, this is what I want to promote. Right? If the atheist or the secularist thought process is the way you want to move forward, then this is the way that we have to think. We need to fight every step of the way in order to promote progress, in order to promote well-being. If we're not doing this, then we have failed our mission, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what mission? We don't have any purpose. And you're right. We don't have any purpose. But the thing is that we build our own purposes. We look at the amalgamation of ideas which are around us. We say, oh, this one seems to be the most convincing out of all other ideas. And we go into that idea. We divulge in it. We delve deeper into its substance or we should be delving deeper into its substance. And then from that point, what do we end up doing is that we end up defending the belief that we have. And that's why a lot of people kind of cringe when I say this, but I say, but this is the truth. The communists, in a sense, were I kind of envy them, even though that I don't agree with them whatsoever. I envy them because they truly believed that what they were doing was for the best for civilization and for society and for the world in general. And they were willing to lay down their lives for their idea in order to bring forth progress. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need to lay down lives or anything like that, but I'm just saying that looking at an ideology that had nothing to do with theism. So there was no need for martyrdom or anything like that. It's not like you're going to be ascended into the seventh heaven, for instance, because you died in a fight. No, but they still believed in their idea strong enough that they were willing to put down their lives in order to change things for the better. What they believed was for the better. And that's what I'm saying, is that when I'm looking at certain atheists today or certain atheist groups today, I find that I'm looking at individuals that, first off, aren't necessarily delved into their belief. They're just like, it's kind of like a ride. It's like a journey, or it's like a phase, right? Oh, I'm in this phase at this moment. But the phase can always change, but I'm in this phase at the moment. And that's the one thing that the theist has over the atheist every time, is their belief in the thing that they believe in is strong. So if they're moving forward and they think this is the best way of progress, they're going to move in that general direction together. Well, not together, because obviously theism is broken off into multiple different ideologies or sects and everything like that. Matters what theistic sect you're looking at. Like if you look at Christianity is broke up into all the sects. If you look at Islam is broke up into all its sects, and so on and so forth. However, what I would state is that we need to look at the atheists of the past and see what drove them, right? Like, as I stated, I'm not calling for any type of, as I said, laying down one's life for something or anything like that, because we don't live inside that said environment. And wouldn't make any sense to bring that up. And we're definitely not living within the communistic era of 1918, where you saw Lenin come to power because he overthrew anyways, we'll get into that in conflicts, world conflicts in the future. But as of yet, I'm not going to really delve into that. But that's what I'm meaning, though, is that people had drive back then. They knew what they were trying to aim for, and they went for it because they knew that was the only way for progress. And nowadays, I find that atheists are kind of like, well, it is what it is. It's a phase. And it's just like, even if you're whatever the situation is, if you're a theist, if you're whatever, you should still think in a secularist way. If that is the case, I'm saying, right? Like if you're not like a super conservative or just conservative or whatever the situation is, but you're actually looking towards a secularist mind frame or have a secularist mind frame, then that should be the thing that should be fought for no matter what. No matter, even if you do want to step your foot, or if somehow you're convinced out of the ether that this is now the destiny of some person, that they're going to become a theist or whatever. Okay, fine. That is your decision. And as I stated in the beginning of this video, that nobody has a right, not nobody, my apologies. that nobody can choose what they are. Now I'm forgetting the word that I used before. What they're convinced of. There you go. Nobody can choose what they're convinced of. But the problem is, at least for me, is that when I look at the theists keep moving in a direction which they are assured of. And we're kind of like at this wall that we're trying to get through, but we don't have the vigor, in a sense, to get through. So it's just like, okay, well, we tried. And we just walk away from the wall. And I'm saying that we need to be more assured of what we want. Right? If we want change, then there should be nothing that stands in your way. No matter how many theists are out there, how many people are against you in your thought process, it doesn't matter. Because the only thing that matters is the idea that you want to bring forward that you know is going to bring progress. We see it within the information that a more secularized nation brings forth more progress, brings forth more well-being, brings forth more civility, brings forth more emergent morals and values. And that's what I'm saying. Yes, Linear, you're 100% correct. People need goals. But I find that the atheist movement doesn't really have goals that much. It's just a thing that's kind of just there, like, okay, well, I want to promote reason, or I want to promote science. Beautiful, if that is the case. But if you really want to promote something that is going to change, that is going to actually build up and do better for science, do better for progress, do better for our mechanization, and let alone for our modernization of our actual civilizations, then we need to start thinking on a more goal-orientated direction. And not just because that's another thing. Now I'm going to jump into another issue I have with the atheist movement, is that it seems that because we're not as of yet grown enough, and what I mean is by numbers. We haven't grown enough by numbers in order to separate our, I know attack sounds more hostile, so I'm going to say our tactics against certain things that we want to stand up against. But we don't have the numbers in order to do it, right? And let alone most of society looks at atheists as something that they do not have any trust in. And that's the problem that I have with certain movements which are flourishing at the moment. The normalizing atheism movement. Beautiful movement. Beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hinder any type of movements from coming by. Normalizing atheism is beautiful. But my question to those individuals who want to normalize atheism is look at other theist groups that are on the outside. Those what I mean is outside of the normal theistic thought process of a particular nation, whatever that nation may be. They believe in a God world. They don't believe in a non-God world. They believe in a God world. But yet they are still the outsider to the majority of those people within that particular nation's thought process, of a God world thought process. And henceforth, even though that they keep trying to want to come into this group and try to do everything based on toleration or whatever, or trying to adopt the society's rules, the thing is that the majority of theists that are within this group do not want them to come into the group in the first place, nor do they want to work with those individuals within the larger group of theists that are there, right? So my question to the normalizing atheist group is that if these people who believe in a God world, or if this group of individuals who believe in a God world aren't being accepted into a larger group of the same as people that believe also in a God world, but they have a different ideological bend on how God works, let's just say, or they have different practices of how God, on how to worship God. But there's still two Christians, Mormonism, and if you look at Protestantism and Catholicism, they all have the same belief in a God world. But it's all the ways of how they practice that belief, it's all the ways that they're delved into that belief, which separates them and actually leads them to be enemies of each other, and not allowing the group of, let's just say, Catholicists within the group of Protestants or the group of Mormons to be part of a group of Protestants, or Mormons being within a group of Catholics, right? So if we're looking at a God world and we're seeing that these individuals are ostracized from the general whole of society, and they themselves believe in a God world, then how would you expect us, who believe in a non-God world, to be accepted within a God world civilization? It just can't be. And to me, I just find it baffling, because yes, it's the path of least resistance, but it's also the path that's going to lead to failure. Because if we're looking at groups, even skin color within these God world individuals are pushed to the side just because they believe in the same thing. They're Protestant, whatever. They're let's just say Calvinists, or whatever the situation is, and you got black Calvinists and white Calvinists. The majority of individuals are going to push sadly the black individuals out of that group for some stupid reason. And they both believe not in different practices. They both have the same practices. Now it's the skin color that's the problem, right? It's the stupidity of individuals and the group mentality that ends up separating people based on whatever distinction that they're part of or whatever. And then after, you're going to say that, oh no, we within the non-God world is going to be accepted within the God world people. I don't see that. I don't see that. And I just find it asinine, because it's not going to get anywhere. I don't find is not going to get anywhere. When even the liberal theists don't trust atheists, we have a problem. And that means that we need to start focusing on our group, helping connect our group that is more like islands, to connect it to, as I said, a fundamental thought process, or not thought process, because that automatically leads to people thinking that you're trying to control them. But I mean, and see, now I'm getting myself stressed out right now. A foundation that could allow people to stand on it and to feel more secure. And that's how we can actually, that's how I think we need to move forward, is that instead of trying to normalize it, the only way to normalize it is to grow our group even more than we did prior to now. Right? If you look at the individuals of the past, or whatever, let's just say of the 2000s, what was the big thing that helped convince a lot of people to jump ship of their theism and jump into atheism? Was the Daniel Dennett's, was the Sam Harris's, was the Christopher Hitchens, and the Richard Dawkins. When you really saw those individuals really pounding the pavement, in a sense, and going into debates after debates after debates after debates with these theists, and really started to show people, like, this is how we grow our numbers. And that's the thing that I think atheists have forgotten. And from that, the new generation of atheists, such as the Matt Dillahunties, which I watched a lot and actually was convinced by the Matt Dillahunties when I was, or Matt Dillahunty when I was younger, the Aaron Ross, and all these other atheist atheistic individuals, which I kind of forget at the moment, and I do solemnly apologize for forgetting, but still, these are the individuals that help move our movement to a larger extent, and which kind of shook theism in its core. But now this appeasement movement of normalizing just doesn't it doesn't make sense to me, because it's kind of like us groveling, saying please accept us for who we are and we're just like you and everything like that. And it's like, but that isn't going to help, because our numbers aren't growing. And even when we look at the not the demographics, but statistics based on the demographics of atheists within now until 2050, the actual statistics have actually stated that we're going to be lesser in number in 2050 than more in number, because the theists have way more children than the atheists do. And henceforth, they're just going to continuously propagate. And also, what we haven't thought about is people reverting back into their religion from being an atheist, right? And that's the whole entire thing, is that we need to have a foundation that we can stand on in order to show the group. Because how do you get accepted is that you need to have a big enough group in order to start changing things, even policy wise. If you don't have a large enough group, yeah, you can make all the noise you want, or you can do all the appeasing you want. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you nowhere. But when you actually start growing the numbers of your particular group, then slowly but surely you can have more effect on society itself. And that's what I think that atheists should do. Now, don't get me wrong. Should we tackle certain problems that we have in different ways? Absolutely, because the same way isn't going to work for everybody. Like with my tactic, which is more straightforward, for instance, and more in your face, is not going to be beneficial for a lot of or for certain individuals who are on the fence, right? But people who are taking a more, let's just say, lenient approach, or more, let's talk about it and let's just discuss and let's have a back and forth. And don't get me wrong, I love doing that too. I'm not saying I'm only like the in-your-face type of person. I love to discuss different ideologies. I absolutely love it. But the thing, annoyed, I saw that. Yes. Dawkins, I'm not going to lie, also did it. It was like one of the individuals that did it for me as well. Because he really started to show, and I think he was the first one to actually start hitting, we're not hitting, but I mean start actually debating Muslim individuals as well, and actually stumped a lot of Muslims while he was debating them. So that in itself was beautiful, and that actually helped me deconvert as well. So that was the thing that I do want to say. But when we're looking no to chain, no worries. All is good, no problems. And welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for coming on in. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, what we need to do as a community is that we need different ways to tackle different problems. And I think that's the way to grow the community even more, is by, like how I state, we need the Matt Dillahunties. Yes, a lot of people say that there's sometimes problems with the with Matt Dillahunty's way of doing things. But I actually think that we need Matt Dillahunty, because he actually goes up into debates and is not afraid to do so, and kind of brings people from their thought process that are on the fence, and actually have them come along into atheism as well. I've looked at a couple of videos and I've seen people say, well, I've changed my mind because I heard Matt Dillahunty debate, and I realized that there was a couple of things even within my own theistic belief system that he tackled, and it took me quite some time to unwrap all that. But finally, I wanted, or not wanted, but finally, I was convinced that I didn't have the right belief or whatever. And I think that is the thing that we really want to tackle. But at the same time, you need, let's just say, street epistemology, because street epistemology is also good too. And it also takes a more lighter approach. So when people are coming and you're speaking with individuals, it's more or less just like a back and forth conversation, not just like a debate in your face, right? But it's a beautiful way of tackling the same issue and bringing people into the fold, right? Into growing our own ranks, which is what I think a lot of atheists want, hopefully, because if, again, as I stated, if that's not what we want, then what is the purpose of us even talking? What is the purpose of us even coming onto these forums and venting our not our problems, but just venting the problems that we have with society, if we're just going to be there just to vent? Because the whole entire point is that, well, you're just going to keep venting no matter what, because you're not changing anything. You're not trying to aim for change. You're just aiming to vent, and people are like, oh, cool, this person is venting, and just walks away. But it's to people who want to bring change. Thank you. Yes, Annoyed. Much appreciated. Anthony Magnabosco, exactly, with street epistemology, is a fantastic individual, and he's also helped big time bring individuals into the atheistic, or at least within the secularistic fold, which is beautiful in itself. And that's what we need. We need more people doing these type of conversations, and let alone we need the Aron Raws who are, let alone with doing debates with theists, actually step up and change. Yeah, exactly, right? Thank you, Linear. I really do appreciate that. Yes. Well, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I don't think I got the. We're gonna take it steps at a time, but hopefully, in the future, more people will hopefully wanna see the way how I do things, and then we can, as I said, grow this enlightenment more, because that's the whole important. That's the whole entire point of why I'm doing this, is because I feel within my bones that this is the right direction to move. So henceforth, I want to create something that models that models the right direction, that leads people in a particular way that gives them more well-being than they had prior to. That's what I'm trying to aim at. What about atheists that equate community with church? Off the chain, that is actually a really good question. I really like that question. With those atheists, I find it's difficult, right? Because even though when we yeah, even though we end up what's the word I'm looking for? That there are certain atheists that are out there that will see, let's just say, that equate community with church, and that they're skeptical about community because they think that it's going to bring, let's just say, a dogmatic type of perspective to the movement. So they want to try to get away from that, or they don't see the importance of that, right? How do we convince them? Another good question. I think how we convince them is through our actions. Because as of now, as I stated, there's not a lot of atheist groups at the moment that are really doing things in the real world. Like we do things within on our websites. which is good, which does actually help with the, as I stated, like uh, freedom from religion. Wow, I forgot that organization. The name of the organization just a bit. Freedom of religion, uh, as we can see, actually really helps individuals that have religious trauma syndrome or any type of these, or come from, let's just say, the fringes of their society, let's just say more in the South or the Midwest, right? Where there's more religious individuals rather than atheists or secularists to begin with. And henceforth, they feel that they're alone. Well, freedom from religion actually helps them out as well. So I think how we change their mind is that we need to show them, right? There's exactly off the chain. And that's what I mean to say, right? And by the way, Linear, yes, that is from Facebook. Just I just saw what you wrote. So my apologies for just getting to that now. Yes, it is from Facebook. But yes, off the chain. You're absolutely right. They're so far and few between that people just kind of brush it off. And what are the number one things that people really look at is that they only see like the majority of these charities, right, are religious or religiously orientated. And most of what I see with, like, definitely, let's just say YouTube atheists or whatever the situation is, which we do need them too, by the way. I'm not saying we don't, but there are some YouTube atheists that have a lot of following, but they really don't delve into charity work or anything like that. What they more delve into is trying to teach people about philosophy, or they try to teach people about evolution or whatever the situation may be. And I think we need them and stuff in order for us to be more aware or more inclined, at least within the philosophical realm, of how we can defend our atheistic perspectives, and let alone to understand, let's just say, people who don't necessarily understand evolution. Well, now they have a channel that they can go on that could actually help them juggle with the perspective of what it really means when we say evolution, right? So, hold on 1 second. You're absolutely right off the chain. Again, I know I've been saying absolutely right for most of the things that you're saying, but you're right. We do have a lot of tax-free religious organizations which are out there, and that's why I think uh, the secularist organizations or secularists need to start, just like how, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, he's saying that Satanism is good or whatever. Let's just say if a theist walks through here, but just like with Satanism, for instance, like they themselves have worked or they've made themselves into a quote unquote or quasi religious order, right? And from that being stated, they're able to also work in the tax-free zone. So that's what secularists need to try to look into, is creating organizations or creating groups that we can then look at as quote unquote, let's just say, I don't want to say quasi-religious, because after people would say, oh, well, that's a cult or whatever, but have some sort of tax-free exemptions so that we can literally start creating, let's just say, community centers and stuff like that. Because I really think that community centers and more secularists or even atheist community centers would be beneficial in today's day. Like, even here in Canada and stuff like that, and even within the United States, we have tons, right, of like churches and everything like that, almost on, maybe not on every street corner, but I mean almost on every block, or on every few blocks you see like a church or you see a religious institution there. And I think that we are missing the opportunity for us being secularists in order to jump into that um, pie as well, in a sense. Because if we really want to change things, we'll need to think and focus on these particular in these particular directions. TST. Yeah, you're definitely right, Annoyed. Yeah, there's a few of us that are atheists though, and that's why with the way that I'm looking at things, there's a lot of people who are on the fence, I think. More people than we actually think there are. And the thing is that people predominantly want something that gives them benefits, something that gives them a better reason of being, right? And we can do that. I think that we as secularists can do that for individuals, right? But the thing is that we need to sit down with each other and have that discussion with each other of how do we actually check some of these boxes off. So when we do have, let's just say, deists or theists sitting on the fence, they'll look over, see that foundation, and say, you know what? I think that this foundation is going to be perfectly fine for me to stand on. And I would rather stand on that than stand on where I'm at right now. And that's what we got to try to provide as atheists, I think. TSD is actually. Okay, yeah. I haven't necessarily read TST. This. Oh, is that the Satanist Church, or is that something completely different? I'm not particularly sure. Uh, because the Seven Tenets sounds uh familiar to me, but I'm not sure what necessarily what the TST is actually standing for off the chain. So if you do want to elaborate, I would love to hear that. Yes. Hurting. Oh, the Satanic Temple. Okay. Yes, I agree with you. And the seven tenets are actually awesome. I do agree with you on that. But I think that we need something more. We need something more more tangible. Like I think that the Satanist Temple has kind of shown the way for us secularists, and we now need to build sort of on their shoulders in a sense, and add and elaborate, let's just say, more tenants and stuff like that for people to actually want to join in, as I said, to secularism and definitely to atheism, because I think that atheism is the only way forward, in my true opinion. But that's just me. Um, yes, herding atheists is like herding cats, but I think that even with cats, cats mostly go to where there's food, right? And if you provide the right amount of food, they will continuously go in that general direction. Now, I despise saying that because it's kind of saying that you need to put food in front of atheists, but I think that's the thing that we need, is that we need intellectual food and a movement that can, when they go into to nosh, let's just say, on this sustenance, they're like, ooh, this is something that I can come back to. And if we're able to do that, then we hit our goal. Even if it's just a couple of individuals and the rest are like, I don't care about this or whatever. That's how a movement truly grows, is from the few. And then from them, then it goes out more and more and more into yes, Annoyed. Atheist potlucks all the way. um 1 second, let me just read chat for a bit. Uh, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. I completely agree with that. Uh, I think that we do need to act with compassion. I think that we do need to act uh, but I think at the same time too, we need to be more solidified within our thought process. If we are more solidified, that means that when we move forward, then we we can be a force to be reckoned with against the individuals that want regression. And that's what we want to aim for. We want to be that force that is able to stand against regression, just like with the how the Supreme Court ruled against abortions within the United States, within the U.S. If we had more people, let's just say, who were, how could I say it? If we had more individuals that were less religious, I think that these type of laws would not be stipulated or wouldn't be put into practice, and we would still have Roe versus Wade. But sadly, we're seeing the beginnings of this regression, this regressive spin to our society, or at least within the U.S. So we really need to think about how we move forward and to add more people into our midst, I think. And we need to have more people within the atheist movement. And they need to be more vocal about how our way of thinking is better, in a sense, than the theistic way. Because I think that's the only way how we can get our point across. But that's just me. Okay, my bad. I have completely neglected chat. Okay. Belief should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. I somewhat agree with that, because I think if we look scientifically, right, there's only few belief systems which comport to the scientific understanding of the world. And if there are other belief systems which are out there that are not believing within the scientific methods of the universal scientific methods, or the scientific method, then we're going to run into issues with those type of individuals. So what I do think is that we have to be more or less upfront. And what I mean, because I was going to say combative, but a lot of people see that in a negative light. But I'm saying combative in the light of when we're seeing regression, we're not nervous to stand up and face it and everything like that, and continuously face that regression until we can move it to a whole new perspective, right? Until we start seeing progress again. So again, I think that if we're talking about belief systems comporting with the scientific methods or scientific understanding of the world, I think there will be a lot of belief systems that will be cut out from that. But again, that's just me. But I do think when people believe in magical thinking, that can be a detriment to the way that society progresses. But that's just me. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do their best in order to rectify it and resolve it. Absolutely. People are fallible. You're 100% correct. And that's why, for me, it matters what the person did, obviously. It matters what the person did. Before I say this, it matters what the person did. But if the person hasn't done anything that's too devastating or hurts a community in a real profound way, then I 100% think that the community should have the wherewithal, that's the word I'm looking for, the wherewithal to understand that we should forgive these individuals for those certain transgressions, and that we should add them back into the fold instead of just coldly turning our backs to them. I think that that is a negative aspect. And I do think that certain people within the atheist community, and I'm at fault at that too, just a year ago and stuff like that. But I'm happy that I was able to remedy my own uh, problems, and not problems like I did something wrong with the community or anything like that. But I'm just saying, like, there was a particular individual that it came to my notice, and instead of actually having any type of conversation, I axed that individual, and I felt really bad for doing that. And I think that or from now on, I don't look at it in that perspective anymore of just like, okay, well, that's it. Like, I want to give people chances, because it's true. We're a small community, and we can't just be asking people for small mistakes that they've made. So you're 100% correct. We need to be more open armed with individuals who might have done certain issues in the past or whatever. And we should definitely forgive them for past transgressions. But again, it matters what they've also done too. If it's something horrendous, then I do not think that individual should have a second chance. But if it's just this one-off or two-off thing that really didn't do that much to harm the community or anything like that, then I think we are that we should. And by the way, I'm sorry, I just got caught off. Linear. No, I'm not talking about that individual. No, I'm definitely not talking about the individual that abused kids. That's not at all what I'm talking about. It was this other individual that was in our group, and I ended up acting too quickly to ask them rather than to actually have a discussion with them, sit down with them, and see what was the problem and everything like that. And we all make our mistakes. I made mine, and I do want to be more arms open to individuals that do minor transgressions and stuff like that. And that's why I'm saying that the individual who abused kids, this is not the individual that I'm talking about. And I think that that person should not be added into the community whatsoever, because that's just way too much. You're going beyond, above and beyond, and you are damaging the next of generation. And what they did was 100% immoral and henceforth and irreprehensible. So I don't think that they should be welcomed back into the community. But as I stated, that wasn't that individual that I was talking about. It was another person. I hope I answered your question, Linear. Yeah, if he annoyed, likewise, my friend, and that was painful for me as well. So that's why, like, I think like with the community, people that do things like what Linear stated, that hurt kids or abuse women or anything like that, that's where we run into a huge problem. And as I said, those type of actions are irreprehensible. Reprehensible. Yes. Reprehensible, not irreprehensible. Reprehensible. Whoops. My apologies, dear viewers. My apologies. I meant reprehensible, not irreprehensible. Thank you. Thank you for the correction, Linear. Thank you so much. And I will write that in the comment section afterwards of what I meant. So when people go through, they'll be like, okay. That's what he meant. Annoyed? No, he's not. He's not an atheist again. He's continuing down his own path and stuff like that. But I'm saying that if he does come back, he will not be at least within my community, he's not going to be welcome. But I can't say within anybody else's community. If he does get into anybody else's community, then that's on them to decide to allow him into their community, but not mine. And yes, Linear, I'm talking about that guy too. So yeah. One second. Let me just look at the comment section really quick. Reprehensible. That was the word I was trying to use. Okay. But all in all, I think that the atheist community right now is a beautiful community that we have. There's a lot of things that we are tackling which needs to be tackled within our community, I believe. But I do see, like, the things I mentioned prior to are things that need to be really built up. And before I state what I was about to state, I almost forgot this, is that we need to also connect. Like, the last thing that I find is kind of like a negative perspective within the atheist community is that we have different atheists from different belief systems or whatever. So we have the majority of atheists that are from the more Christian Western world. And then after, we have like Muslim atheists, and we have Hindu atheists, and we got Buddhist atheists, and so on and so forth. But the problem that I see is that we don't have anything that is connecting these atheists together. They're kind of like in their separate islands, just doing their own thing. And I think that if we're able to work together as a team, no matter what your background is as an atheist, if you come from a Muslim background, if you come from a Christian, Buddhist, Hinduist, whatever type of belief system, a Jewish background, whatever type of background you come from, we should actually be working together as atheists in order to bring because the problem isn't just one theology. The problem isn't just Christianity. The problem isn't just Islam. The problem isn't just Judaism. It's all theologies which are the problem. So we need to work together in order to bring these individuals from different societies and different areas and bring them in order to actually start having a working ideological argument, not just about Christianity or not just about whatever one thing, but it needs to be on all of theism. And henceforth, I think that if we move in that general direction, then we as atheists will be a lot more versatile, I should say, when it comes to arguing about or debating about different belief systems and everything like that. And I think more people would join the atheist movement through working together with other atheist former believers who have now become atheists, who are either Muslim, who are either, as I said, Christian or Jewish, or whatever the situation may be. And if we work together, we can actually become a formidable force against theism in general. And I think that we should definitely be aiming for that, and aiming for that next leap forward in atheism. Well, so at this very moment, we are done. The show is done. I want to thank everybody who came on through. Off the Chain Atheist, thank you so much for coming on by. Linear, thank you so much for coming. And also, thank you for correcting me on the wording that I used. Yeah, I meant wow, I can't even say it now. Can't do it. Reprehensible. Fuck. Okay, there we go. We got this. Reprehensible. Instead of irreprehensible, I wanted to use reprehensible. So thank you again for correcting me. Annoyed, I love you too, brother. You are amazing. Thank you for coming on by. And I really do appreciate it. Producer Wes, again, thank you so much for creating the intro and the outro video. And I really do hope that all you have a great night. I will be back on for next Saturday and next Sunday. Next Saturday's show will actually be discussing the situation that's going in the United States right now based on the new abortion law. So that's what I'll be speaking about. And then on Sunday, we'll be talking about I guess we'll just be talking about leaving the faith, and I will have a guest with me next Sunday. So, and it's a surprise, so I can't tell you. But still, thank you so much for coming on by. You guys are absolutely amazing, and yeah, thank you so much. And prepare for the new enlightenments, my friend. Have a great night, and peace out.